evening. Today I will talk about Germany's budget problems again. Um, as you may have noticed, currently Germany doesn't have a legal budget, and I'm now gonna explain a bit further on this. First things first, no, Germany is not going to be bankrupt. Germany will not default on any payments, any debt that is due, the payments for all the employees and so on. Any expense that is legally required will be made in a legal way from the incoming tax revenue. And second thing, it is not a problem with having too little money. Germany is currently making record levels of tax revenue. The only problem is that the government managed to spend even more and do so in a frankly unconstitutional way because it violates debt ceiling and various other clauses of the constitution, and this has become a very urgent problem since the German Bundesverfassungsgericht, the Supreme Court, has finally declared this illegal. But this is only one problem. The other problem that's somewhat collided with that is that since the current government, the so-called Ampel or traffic light of the Social Democrats, the Liberal FDP and the Greens, is in power, the government spending went way out of control and no one knows how to pay for it without making debts in a constitutional way. So that's a long story, and the constitutional part is a bit more complicated. Ever since Corona, the German government has started development of special funds that work outside the regular budget, but will eventually be paid out of it, where for emergency purposes, debt is taken on in a separate fund that is then supposed to pay for a program related to that crisis. In case of Corona, that would be aid to companies that went struggling because of the lockdowns and so on. And other crises, like for example the energy crisis, would have separate budgets. Not counted here is the 100 billion euro fund for defense. That was done separately, and that one is legal and will not be cut. Whether or not it is effective is another question, and I won't go in detail here. This will become long enough. And so special funds. So Germany has a special 60 billion euro fund for Corona aid that was not needed. Since governments are always in need of money, the government then decided that this fund from 2022 would be simply used for transformation into green energy, which is not Corona related, as you may have noticed. That's of course absurd, since the money was technically earmarked for Corona and only Corona related, but it went anyway. The opposition party CDU went to sue against this. Understandable, because, well, these funds are not free. Eventually someone will have to pay for it, and the someone will be a future government. Very likely the CDU. So that's already kind of dirty politics to spend money now and leave the bills to your successor government to handle that. So the CDU went to court and they won. And now we have the salad, as we say in Germany. It's going to be bad. Since the court has decided no, it is bluntly unconstitutional, and this decision should have been no surprise to anyone, those 60 billions are now lacking in this year's budget, and those 60 billions are already spent. That's problem one. Problem two, of course, next year's budget that was scheduled to be voted on last Thursday is now also an open question again, and that will go back to our intro slightly, but keep with me. The government so far has reacted by proposing a supplementary emergency budget for this year that will allow retroactively to pay borrowed money for the payments that already made. It's somewhat necessarily because there is no way you could realistically return the whole thing now. The money is already spent. And they also can make the claim, well, we still have an energy problem due to events in Ukraine, and lots of this money was spent for the energy price break, which basically means subsidizing energy consumption and so on. Okay, that's the minor issue. The major issue is we still need a budget for next year. And we needed it, quite frankly, even earlier than last week or this week. Because these energy price subsidies are, of course, only limited to this year. If next year we still have a war in Ukraine, as we all know will be, unless something like a miracle happens, energy prices will stay high. And Germany already has extremely high energy prices. That will hurt the industry, that will hurt consumers, that will hurt everyone. And for example, my landlord who collects money for heating of house and so I live for rent, and the local energy supplier and so on, they all need a down payment month by month. And since they can't count on government subsidies and tax cuts and so on, from January 1st next year on, they will have to count on the full price. And maybe retroactively, some money will get paid back. No one knows. So this affects anyone. Problem is how to pay for it. You can't just declare an emergency on year by year time because constitutionally that emergency is a sudden, unpredictable situation, not something that is going on forever or even planned for. That second point is also important because lots of the special fund money was earmarked for energy transformation programs. This is not an emergency, it's a political goal, something you choose to, and whether or not you can't claim it as an emergency situation, that is not that sudden appearance of something like Corona came out of nowhere, the Russian attack came out of nowhere. Climate change is a regular policy goal and has to be paid by regular means, and this issue will come for long years, so it's not just some special fund. Point. And the other problem with the budget is that the government is very bad at coming to a decision. They are constantly bickering amongst each other, and this goes especially with the budget. And quite frankly, spending borrowed money is the only thing that they can agree on, because it is so easy. They can pass the bill to someone else and use it as a glue to keep the coalition together and, quite frankly, to do outright vote buying. One of those issues is the so-called Kindergrundsicherung, or Child Basic Security Package, a program by our Green family minister who has decided we will not leave any kind behind, and any child should get basic security. That is a very long-term program that is very expensive, very questionable. Well, because how exactly do you measure the income of a child? Most children don't have any. The parents have. And if you count the income of the parents, you now have the problem that Germany already has, the so-called Kindergeld, welfare package for families with children. And we add more on this. And the debate about this was, at what value do you cut the special support? And the Greens insisted on a very, very high value that would pay child benefits to wealthy upper middle class families, which is absurd. They don't need welfare. They're rich enough. Incidentally, lots of the Green voters fall into this demographic. What a surprise. In a surprising turn of events, and this goes back to the spring, the Liberals, their boss Christian Lindner is the finance minister, fought back, and even so somewhat successfully, and pointed out that we can't spend money for this luxury item. And this went even a bit saucy when Christian Lindner, on accusations of being antisocial, issued back that his insistence that this funding should be cut was only one piece of a laundry list of cuts that the family ministry could do. He had also suggested cutting the PR budget. Another problem with this government is very out of control PR budget, not so much in the overall sum, but this is advertisement. This should be not funded by the taxpayer. This is something the parties should fund themselves. And there's a related issue. Well, if you buy advertise, you could theoretically use this to bribe the media. Theoretically. And, big surprise, Mr. Lindner won. The program was cancelled. But after the summer break, our family minister, Ms. Powers, has decided that she would block the budget. Legally, she can't, but the coalition had agreed that no decision should be made against the veto of any minister. And since she is a minister, she did. Big blamage. At the end, the Liberals folded again. And this Kindergrundsicherung, we're still talking about this child benefits for rich people, was then written into the budget proposal. Financed, of course, due to debt. And there's a lot of other things, ridiculous industry subsidies, we'll come back to this, all paid out of the special funds that the government basically inherited from other emergency situations. And then the big hammer came in, the decision by the court that these funds are illegal. An unsurprising decision. And now we have a problem. The government would need to pass a budget. But they have to cut money somewhere, and this is non-essential spending. The Greens, however, went full radical mode and decided no, they won't just cut their programs, they will now cut really everything and stuff that hurts. And Robert Habeck, one of the co-chairs of the Greens, is the Minister for Economy, whose ministry handles a lot of those payments for energy prices, subsidies, and so on. So, for example, in the city of Magdeburg, state of Sachsen-Anhalt in East Germany, a new chip factory is supposed to be constructed. It gets subsidies of about 10 billion euros or something. And now these subsidies are on the chopping line. Unsurprisingly, the Prime Minister of the state, Robert Haseloff, who is a CDU member, so technically the opposition, suddenly decided that he supports Green suggestions to reform the debt ceiling, whatever this means. Side note on this new chip factory, it is supposed to replace an existing chip factory in Dresden, Saxony, Germany, East Germany. So this is corporate welfare, replacing one factory with another. This does not create jobs, it just transfers them a few hundred kilometers northwestward. Pointless. There's no reason to put taxpayer money here other than, well, vote buying. And it works. So the Greens are now die-hard pushing for programs that would require a constitutional reform to allow them to raise the debt ceiling and pay indefinitely with borrowed money. And, well, as mentioned above, they would have to do so fast, and that's not going to work. You're not going to change the constitution and then pass a new budget in a few, weeks. Well, if you count Christmas holidays, there's slightly more than 1 month before you need a budget. From January 1st, we are technically out of money, regular spend money. As mentioned above, all bills due will be paid but you can't make new decisions. Big problem. Yeah, so that's it. It's not the court's decision, it's not an economic problem, it's not even Vladimir Putin's fault, as many faults as some guy has. It is simply a homemade crisis that could have been totally avoided, but it wasn't. And now we have the salad, as we say. Well, good evening.